Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 3 of our reading of the Harvard Classics, the Apology, Phaedo, and Credo of Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett, the Golden Sayings of Epictetus, Epictetus, translated by Hastings Crossley, and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, translated by George Long, edited by Charles W. Eliot, LLD, with introduction and notes. This is from Grolier Corporation. Grolier Enterprises Incorporated offers customized Harvard. Okay, wait, here we go. Book plates for details. There's that. It's copyright 1980. 1937 and 1907 by Grolier Enterprises Corp. Manufactured in the United States. And we were talking here. Socrates, or rather Plato, or the person writing this, Socrates, I believe it was, or Plato, or okay. Anyways, he was saying talking about belief, I believe. Anyways, we're going to continue. It's really hard to actually recount this, but anyways. Okay, we're going to go and start back here. And this is the point in which, as I think, I am superior to men in general, and in which I might perhaps fancy myself wiser than other men. That whereas I know but little of the world below, I do not suppose that I know. But I do know that injustice and disobedience is disobedience to a better, whether God or man, is evil and dishonorable, and I will never fear to avoid a possible good rather than a certain evil. And therefore, if you let me go now and reject the counsel of Anytus, who said that if I were not put to death, I ought not to have been prosecuted, and that if I escape now, your sons will all be utterly ruined by listening to my words. If you say to me, Socrates, this time we will not mind Anytus, and will let you off, but upon one condition, that you are not to inquire and speculate in this way any more, and that if you are caught doing this again, you shall die. If this was the condition on which you let me go, I should reply, Men of Athens, I honor and love you, but I shall obey God rather than you, and while I have life and strength, I shall never cease from the practice and teaching of philosophy, exhorting anyone whom I meet after my manner, and convincing him, saying, Oh, my friend, why do you, who are a citizen of the great and mighty and wise city of Athens, care so much about laying up the greatest amount of money and honor and reputation, and so little about wisdom and truth and the greatest improvement of the soul, which you never regard or heed at all? Are you not ashamed of this? And if the person with whom I am arguing says, Yes, but I do care. I do not depart or let him go at once. I interrogate and examine and cross-examine him. And if I think that he has no virtue, but only say that he has, I reproach him with undervaluing the greater and overvaluing the lesser. And this I should say to everyone whom I meet, young and old, citizen and alien, but especially to the citizens, inasmuch as they are my brethren. For this is the command of God. As I would have you know, and I believe that to this day no greater good has ever happened to the state than my service to the God. For I do nothing but go about persuading you all, old and young alike, not to take thought of your persons and your properties, but first and chiefly to care about the greatest improvement of the soul. I tell you that virtue is not given by money, but that from virtue comes money and every other good of man, public as well as private. This is my teaching, and if this is the doctrine which corrupts the youth, my influence is ruinous indeed. It but if anyone says that this is not my teaching, he is speaking an untruth. Where Wherefore, O men of Athens, I say to you, do as Anytus bids you, or not as Anytus bids you, and either acquit me or not. But whether you do, know that I shall never alter my ways, not even if I have to die many times. Men of Athens, do not interrupt, but hear me. There was an agreement between us, that you should hear me out. And I think that what I'm going to say will do you good, for I have something more to say, at which you may be inclined to cry out, but I beg that you will not do this. I would have you know that if you kill such as one as I am, you will injure yourself more than you will injure me. Meletus and Anytus will not injure me. They cannot, for it is not in the nature of things that a bad man should injure a better than himself. I do not deny that he may perhaps kill him, or drive him into exile, or deprive him of civil rights, and he may imagine, and others may imagine, that he is doing him a great injury. But in that I do not agree with him, for the evil of doing as Anytus is doing, of unjustly taking away another man's life, is greater far. And now, Athenians, I am not going to argue for my own sake, as you may think, but for yours, that you may not sin against the God, or lightly reject his boon by condemning me. For if you kill me, you will not easily find another like me, who, if I may use such a ludicrous figure of speech, as a sort of gadfly given to the state by the god, and the state is like a great and noble steed who is tardy in his motions owing to his very size, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that gadfly which God has given the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you, arousing and persuading you, reproaching you. And as you will not easily find another like me, I would advise you to spare me. I dare say that you may feel irritated at being suddenly awakened when you are caught napping, and you will think that if you were to strike me dead, as Anytus advises, which you easily might, then you would sleep on for the remainder of your lives, unless God, in his care of you, gives you another gadfly, and that I am given to you by God is proved by this. If I had been like other men, I should not have neglected all my own concerns, or patiently seen the neglect of them during all these years, and have been doing yours, coming to you individually like a father or elder brother, exhorting you to regard virtue. This I say would not be like human nature. And had I gained anything, or if my exhortations had been paid, there would have been some sense in that. But now, as you will perceive, not even the impudence of my accusers dares to say that I have even exacted or sought pay of anyone. They had no witness of that, and I have a witness of the truth of what I say. My poverty is a sufficient witness. Someone may wonder why I go about in private giving advice and busying myself with the concerns of others, but do not venture to come forward in public and advise the state. I will tell you the reason of this. You have often heard me speak of an oracle or sign which comes to me, and it is the divinity which Meletus ridicules in the indictment. This sign I have seen. Oh, this sign I have had ever since I was a child. The sign is a voice, which comes to me and always forbids me to do something, which I am going to do, but never commands me to do anything. And this is what stands in the way of my being a politician. And rightly, as I think, for I am certain, O men of Athens, that if I had engaged in politics, I should have perished long ago and done no good either to you or myself. And don't be offended by my telling you the truth. For the truth is that no man who goes to war with you or any other multitude honestly struggles against the commission of unrighteousness and wrong in the Senate, in the state rather, will save his life. He who will really fight for the right, if he would live even for a little while more, oh, even for a little while, must have a private station and not a public one. I can give you as proofs of this not words only, but deeds, which you value more than words. Let me tell you a passage of my own life, which will prove to you that I should never have yielded to injustice from any fear of death, and that if I had not yielded, I should have died at once. I will tell you a story, tasteless perhaps, and commonplace, but nevertheless true. The only office of state which I ever held, O men of Athens, was that of senator. The tribe Antiochus, which is my tribe, had the presidency at the trial of the generals who had not taken up the bodies of the slain after the battle of Argensay. And you proposed to try them all together, which was illegal, as you all thought afterwards, but at the time I was the only one of the Prytanes who was opposed to the illegality, and I gave my vote against you. And when the orators threatened to impeach and arrest me and have me taken away, and you called and shouted, I made up my mind that I would run the risk having law and justice with me, rather than take part in your injustice, because I feared imprisonment and death. This happened in the days of the democracy. But when the oligarchy of the 30 was in power, they sent for me and 4 others into the rotunda and bade us bring Leon the Salaminian and from Salamis, and they wanted to execute him. This was a specimen of the sort of command which they were always giving, with the view of implicating as many as possible in their crimes. And then I showed, not in words only, but in deed, that if I may be allowed to use such an expression, I cared not a straw for death, and that my only fear was the fear of doing an unrighteous and unholy thing. For the strong arm of that oppressive power did not frighten me into doing wrong. And when we came out of the rotunda, the other 4 went to Salamis and fetched Leon, but I went quietly home, for which I might have lost my life had not the power of the 30 shortly afterwards come to an end, and to this many will witness. Now, do you really imagine that I could have survived all those years if I had led a public life, supposing that, like a good man, I had always supported the right and had made justice as I ought to first thing? No, indeed, men of Athens, neither I nor any other, but I have been always the same in all my actions, public as well as private, and never have I yielded any base compliance to those who are slanderously termed. I yielded any base compliance to those who are slanderously termed my disciples, or to any other. For the truth is that I have no regular disciples, but if anyone likes to come and hear me while I am pursuing my mission, whether he be young or old, he may freely come. Nor do I converse with those who pay only, and not with those who do not pay. But anyone, whether he be rich or poor, may ask and answer me, and listen to my words. And whether he turns out to be a bad man or a good one, that cannot be justly laid on my charge, as I never taught him anything. And if anyone says that he has ever learned or heard anything from me in private, which all the world has not heard, I should like you to know that he is speaking an untruth. But I shall be asked, why do people delight in continually conversing with you? I have told you already, Athenians, the whole truth about that. They like to hear the cross-examination of the pretenders to wisdom, rather. There is amusement in this, and this is a duty which the God has imposed upon me, as I am assured by oracles, visions, and in every sort of way in which the will of divine power was ever signified to anyone. This is true, O Athenians, or if not true, would be soon refuted. For if I am really corrupting the youth, and have corrupted some of them already, those of them who have grown up and have become sensible that I gave them bad advice in the days of their youth, should come forward as accusers and take their revenge. And if they do not like to come themselves, some of their relatives, fathers, brothers, or other kinsmen should say what evil their families suffered at my hands. Now, in their time, many of them I see in the court. There is Crito, who is of the same age and of the same deme as myself. And there is Critobulus, his son, whom I also see. Then again, there is Lysanias of Sphetus, who is the father of Aeschines. He is present, and also there is Antiphon of Cephisus, who is the father of Epignis, and there are the brothers of several who have associated with me. There is Nicostratus, the son of Theodorides, and the brother of Theodorus, now Theodoratus, himself is dead, and therefore he, at any rate, will not seek to stop him. And there is Paralus, and the son of Demodocus, who has a brother Thagus, and Adamantus, the son of Ariston, whose brother Plato is present. And Antidorus, who is the brother of Apollodorus, whom I also see. I might mention a great many others, any of whom Meletus should have produced as witnesses in the course of his speech, and let him still produce them if he has forgotten. I will make way for him, and let him say, if he has any testimony of the sort which he can produce. Nay, Athenians, the very opposite is the truth, for all these are ready to witness on behalf of the corrupter, of the destroyer of their kindred, as Meletus and Anytus call me. No, not the corrupted youth only. There might have been a motive for that, but their uncorrupted elder relatives, why should they too support me with their testimony? Why indeed, except for the sake of truth and justice, and because they know that I am speaking the truth and that Meletus is lying. Well, Athenians, this and the like of this is nearly all the defense which I have to offer. Yet a word more. Perhaps there may be. Oh, wow, this goes on for quite a while, doesn't it? Okay. Perhaps there may be someone who is offended at me when he calls to mind how he himself, on a similar or even a less serious occasion, had recourse to um, to prayers and supplications with many tears, and how he produced his children in court, which was a moving spectacle, together with a posse of his relation and friends, whereas I, who am probably in danger of my life, will do none of these things. Perhaps this may come into his mind, and he may be set against me, and vote in anger because he is displeased at this. Now, if there be such a person among you, which I am far from affirming, I may fairly reply to him, my friend, I am a man, and like other men, creatures of flesh and blood. I am not of wood and stone, as Homer says, and I have a family, yes, and sons, Athenians, 3 in number, one of whom is growing up, and the 2 others are still young, and yet I will not bring any of them hither in order to petition you for an acquittal. And why not? Not for any self-will or disregard for you. Whether I am or am not afraid of death is another question, of which I will not now speak. But my reason simply is that I feel such conduct to be discreditable to myself and you and the whole state. One who has reached my years and who has a name for wisdom, whether deserved or not, ought not to debase himself. At any rate, the world has decided that Socrates is in some way superior to other men, and if those among you who are said to be superior in wisdom and courage and any other virtue demean themselves in this way, how shameful is their conduct. I have seen men of reputation, when they have been condemned, behaving in the strangest manner. They seemed to fancy but they were going to suffer something dreadful if they died, and that they could be immortal if you only allowed them to live. And I think that they were a dishonor to the state, and that any stranger coming in would say of them that the most eminent men of Athens, to whom the Athenians themselves give honor and command, are no better than women. And I say that these things ought not to be done by those of us who are of reputation. And if they are done, you ought not to permit them. You ought rather to show that you are more inclined to condemn, not the man who is quiet, but the man who gets up a doleful scene and makes the city ridiculous. Wow, that's deep. But setting aside the question of dishonor, there seems to be something wrong in petitioning a judge and thus procuring an acquittal instead of informing and convincing him. For his duty is not to make a present of justice, but to give justice. And he has sworn that he will judge according to the laws and not according to his own good pleasure. And neither he nor we should get into the habit of prejuring ourselves. There can be no piety in that. Do not then require me to do what I consider dishonorable and impious and wrong, especially now when I am being tried for impiety on the indictment of Meletus. For if, O men of Athens, by force of persuasion and entreaty, I would overpower your oaths, then I should be teaching you to believe that there are no gods, and convict myself in my own defense of not believing in them. But that is not the case, for I do believe that there are gods, and in a far higher sense than that in which any of my accusers believe in them. And to you and to God I commit my cause to be determined by you as is best for you and me. There are many reasons why I am not grieved, O men of Athens, as the vote of condemnation. at the vote of condemnation. I expected this, and am only surprised that the votes were so nearly equal, for I had thought that the majority against me would have been far larger. But now, had 30 votes gone over to the other side, I should have been acquitted, and I may say that I have escaped Meletus, and I may say more, for without the assistance of Anytus and Lycon, he would not have had a fifth part of the vote, as the law requires, in which case he would have incurred a fine of 1,000 drachma, as is evident. And so he proposes death as the penalty. And what shall I propose on my part, O men of Athens? Clearly that was in my due. And what is that which I ought to pay or to receive? What shall be done to the man who has never had the wit to be idle during his whole life, but has been careless of what the many care about, wealth and family, interests, and military offices, and speaking in the assembly and magistries, and the plots and the parties, reflecting that I was really too honest a man to follow in this way and live. I did not go where I could do no good to you or to myself, but where I could do the greatest good privately to every one of you. Thither I went. We've been reading from the Apology of Socrates. The Apology of Socrates by Plato. And if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, support me in any way, all the information will be in the description below, along with a link to the Discord server. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.